Long time no see, Jay. So how are you? First and foremost, I want to know how's going under the quarantine life.
I'm in the same place as usual. It's good to see people through various Zoom and FaceTime and things like that.
First, a very general question to you. As a member of the interview cast in this documentary, do you enjoy watching it so far? The first 4 episodes, is that what you expected?
Yeah, I got a chance to see the first 8 episodes before they aired. And last year at the All-Star game in Charlotte, I actually got to see like a kind of an extended teaser. They put together like a preview episode that just demonstrated what the documentary was going to look like. And, they had already spoken to Michael Jordan, one of their sit-down interviews, and they had all that footage from the 97-98 season. They put together a single episode that just kind of give a feel for what it was going to be like, but it wasn't really authentic. But just even that test episode, I could tell this was going to be a great documentary.
So, I feel like I saw many unseen footages from the documentary. The time span has been nearly 20 years. So why didn't ESPN unveil those exclusive footages 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Why this year?
The conditions under which Jordan and the Bulls granted that NBA Entertainment film crew access back in the 97-98 season was that they would not air the footage without the approval of Michael Jordan. I guess there were other people that had to sign off as well, but most notably, Michael Jordan had to be a part of any process. And so it was really waiting for the right time and waiting for him to be comfortable and, probably waiting for enough distance to pass between then. I think you've seen people a little more honest to speak out about what was going on back then, particularly Horace Grant talking about the Pistons. One notable quote that you wouldn't have had maybe 10 years ago, or certainly not at the time. But this distance has given a lot of people freedom to really speak their mind about what was transpiring back then in the 90s.
So I'm also very, very curious, when will you shot the interview and how's the entire process? How long was your interview?
You can't recognize it? You pass by it every day.
So I know it's in our newsroom, but I don't know when. When I
shot it. You know what? I don't remember now. I don't remember this, but I just know they sent an email and said, "Hey, would you like to be in it?" I said, "I'd love to be in it." It's just a matter of coordinating our schedules. They were very accommodating. For someone who ranks as low on the list of people that they talk to, obviously Michael Jordan's at the top, Phil Jackson, Scottie, and you get all the way down to people like me. The way that they were willing to accommodate me and adjust to my schedule and come to the place that was most convenient for me. All those things that they did were really wonderful on their part, which they didn't have to.
So when was your first interaction with Michael Jordan? How's that experience?
91. So I was covering, actually I wasn't covering, I was a senior at Northwestern, and I just went out to Bulls Media Day. They had their Media Day coming off their first championship, and it was kind of controversial because Michael had gone to the White House with the team. And so it was just going to be interesting. It just wasn't going to be your typical media day like, hey, we're great, we're ready to defend the championship. There was a lot going on. So I went out there and
So from Michael Jordan's first title in 1991 to his last one in 1998. So as a beat reporter covering the Chicago Bulls, how do you feel MJ's openness and his relationship with media changed through that 7 years?
It started changing really, I'd say, 93, when he started coming under attack more. And that's when you had the story about him going off to Atlantic City in the middle of the conference finals against the Knicks, and all these stories about gambling came out, and the Jordan Rules book came out. So that comes out in 91, and it had taken a lot of stuff that was said in the locker room, and all of a sudden it's put out there. So he became a lot more wary, became a lot more aware that everything that he said was being recorded and it could be distributed. So he became a lot more cautious and became a little bit more antagonistic. And all of a sudden he started addressing the media as you guys. Well, you guys say this, you guys say that. And that was a little different than it had been in the 80s and the first year of the 90s. Everything changed. But there would still be these moments. I remember, I think it was before a finals game even. In 96, we're in Seattle, pretty small visitors locker room there, and he was still just, hanging out a little bit and talking. He wasn't doing any formal interviews, but he was just chatting with like Terry Armour, who was the Bulls beat writer at the time for the Chicago Tribune. So you could still have a little bit of that. And, by like 98, I just feel like you just didn't even see him around that much, except for his mandated media interviews that he had to do.
Yeah. So Michael won three-peats twice in his career. Comparing to the first trip from 1991 to 93, what have changed after his 18-month vacation in terms of his leadership, his
wasn't on
character?
vacation. He was playing baseball. He was, but what you saw, the different version that really stands out was, you still had the more athletic Michael in the first three-peat. And the second three-peat, he usually wasn't the most talented player on the floor anymore. Throughout the 80s and early 90s, he was usually the most athletically gifted person on the floor. That wasn't the case anymore. Virtually every team had at least one player that was more talented than him athletically at that point. But what he had was, by then, the championship experience, which is invaluable, and just such a knowledge of the game. He just understood the geometry of the court and could recognize the double teams coming and could spin away from it, and just knew where everyone was supposed to be, how the offense worked, all of that, so that he beat people with his brains much more than his body during the second three-peat.
So like in his second three-peats run, what was the toughest series do you think Michael have played? The Pacers series or Utah Jazz series?
I think the Pacers took him to 7 games. I think that was the toughest test for that team, and they were just really running on fumes at that point. Not only were the Pacers a difficult opponent, but the Bulls were really worn down from 3 years ago into the finals, all the media scrutiny, and then just, you see in the documentary just daily questions about the future. You have to understand, athletes are just intensely focused on the moment. And that's one of the things that makes them so successful, is just their ability to just lock into what's transpiring on that day, at that time, what they have to do to get ready for that game. And they were constantly being asked to project 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, and to project about some things that were out of their control. So that's very unsettling to an athlete, professional ball player, to be taken out of your comfort zone, to be disrupted from your rhythm and what you were trying to do mentally, and to constantly have all these people, asking you to project and asking you to predict the future, which is impossible for them to do. A lot of it was beyond their control. So the mental grind of that season, was really unmatched, at least in that era. I think the Warriors have experienced similar things in this day and age, with maybe even more media scrutiny. But it was a tremendously mentally taxing season for me.
So what was your favorite moment of MJ, both on court and off the court?
I mean, there's too many. It's almost like a montage in my head, so I can't just pull one of them out and separate them. I was thinking though that the shot that he made was probably the most watched moment in basketball history. If you look at the ratings for Game 6 and just the ratings for the 98 finals throughout, more people watch that than anything. So, it's not something that's unique or individual to me, but I just think the lasting memory of Michael Jordan is that shot and the extended follow-through to win the finals in 98.
So did he ever tell you what was his favorite moment or shot in his career?
Not his favorites. I did ask him about the shot he made in 1982 to beat the Hoyas in the championship. He beat Georgetown 1982 NCAA championship. And I asked him just about what that meant to him. And, he said he just gained so much confidence from it. And it really jump-started his career and made him realize how many things were possible. And I asked him, did you ever think about what would have happened if he didn't make that shot? And he just was adamant that no, he didn't want to think about it. I don't even want to consider what could have happened back then, if I hadn't made that shot. So I know that, I don't know if that's the favorite, but I know that was an important pivotal moment. And I do recall the conversation we had about that.
Another thing I noticed from the documentary is that I feel like Michael is still tied to everything, and a lot of it seems still bother him today. For example, like his relationship with Isaiah Thomas and the bad boy Detroit Pistons. So why is he still tied to those things?
that's who he is. He doesn't let things go. He doesn't forget. Manufacture a reason to be mad at somebody if that's what it takes. But you just see this, these eternal grievances that he has are on full display. He said, I hated that team, the Pistons, and the hate carries to this day. That was one of the more honest statements that he made in the documentary. But that's just his personality. Just the longevity of his memory. He's like an elephant. And you saw it in his Hall of Fame speech when he's still mad at the high school coach that didn't put him on the varsity team, when he was in grade or whatever. He still carries that grudge. He had all those grudges that he aired. Still mad at Brian Russell, even though all Brian did was try to play defense on him. Everyone that he carried a grudge against, he aired it all out during his Hall of Fame speech. So again, it shouldn't be revelatory if you profess to care about Michael Jordan, and if you try to learn as much as you can about him and try to absorb every word and every video clip, then all of this has been out there before.
There will be some Kobe Bryant footages. So do you have any favorite Kobe MJ memory? Maybe their all-star matchup?
Yeah, I didn't see those personally. I never covered one of their all-star games. Just how Kobe, the one time I heard him compare himself to Michael, we made those comparisons all the time. He didn't like to do it that much. But one time, he said him and Michael are two guys that did it by scoring. And, that was the way. And that's not the way Magic played. That's not the way LeBron plays, but Kobe and Michael were here to score first and foremost. And they had similar ways of leadership, that they were going to get into guys and insist that they compete at the same level these did, which was really impossible. That's a tough ask because, you could argue that those were the two most competitive people in the NBA. Nobody had that cutthroat competitive nature on the level that Kobe and Michael did. And I think that's why they became good friends, was that Michael saw a lot of himself in Kobe. Of the guys that came after him, I think Michael saw more reflection of himself in Kobe than anyone else.
So many people think Michael Jordan maybe is the GOAT. But I want to know, in your perspective, what does Kobe do better than Michael?
He's a better bad shot maker. If I had 10 seconds left and I'm down by 1 point and I can draw up a play and have Michael dribble and get to the spot he wants to, I'm going to take Michael Jordan. If I have 1.3 seconds left and there's just enough time to just get the ball and, throw it up at the basket, I'm taking Kobe Bryant, for that shot. I think he's the best bad shot maker of all time. Sometimes a bad shot is dictated by the time on the clock. There's not enough time to get a good shot. If there's time to get a shot, Michael Jordan will find a way to get the best possible shot within that time. If there's really no time to create anything, you just have to go get it, turn and fire. I'm taking Kobe Bryant over that. He's the best bad shot maker of all time.
So in terms of personality, do you feel like Kobe and Michael are the same type of player?
Different. Michael was a little more accessible for more of his career. Kobe got it at the end, his last years were really fun and more enjoyable to talk to him. Actually, early on, he was more enjoyable to talk to. Kind of that middle part, his default mode was to just kind of give these ho-hum answers. He could break out of that when he wanted to, but he really wasn't that interesting from 2000 to 2002 or 3. As he started getting a little more confident and feeling himself, he became a little more outspoken, 03, 04. And then when it was his team, it was his team. But it wasn't as enjoyable to talk to him until the last couple of years when he just the pressure was off. He didn't have to put up a facade and he could just kind of tell stories, because at that point he'd been in the league so long, so he had all these stories. And he turned into the bitter old man a little bit too. That was a little fun. He was just railing about the fashion choices of the younger players, for example. I like that version of Kobe better.
So one last question, maybe a little bit tricky. So do you think who's the closest active player in the league to Michael Jordan?
The league is so different now. The only way for younger people to relate to Michael was, say he was a better version of Kobe Bryant, but Kobe was the most similar thing that we've seen in a while. And so just in terms of the competition and the way he shows up every night, Russell Westbrook, Kobe says he sees some of himself in Russell Westbrook, which means that it's kind of descended from Michael Jordan. Kobe took a lot from Jordan. I think Westbrook took a lot from Kobe. It's been passed on. But Westbrook's style. Westbrook beats you with energy and intensity and all that, whereas Michael and Kobe could just as easily beat you with patience and understanding the game, and those aren't hallmarks of Russell Westbrook's game. So in that regard, he doesn't remind me of Michael. The energy and the willpower is similar, but just the style of game is so completely different. The Jordan era has gone away in a lot of ways, just in terms of the way the game is played now is so different from Michael. You just don't see the influence. You don't see as many players coming into the league wearing number 23, for example. People are very independent now, a lot of single-digit number guys, just kind of different number combinations. I mean, Kobe tried to become Michael and beyond, and that was too much to ask for anybody. I think LeBron has become a super version of Magic Johnson. I see more Magic Johnson in LeBron James' game than I see Michael Jordan. And he's been able to combine that with, the athleticism that Magic didn't have. I think we can see people trying to be LeBrons, but how many people have the physique of LeBron James? He's just a really unique athlete, so big, can move so fast, so intelligent. You're going to be hard pressed to find that combination with some other guys coming up.
I mean, I think you believe Scottie Pippen is the best number 2 option ever in basketball world. Do you think Scottie could be a better leader?
He was the best at fulfilling the secondary role.
Okay, so do you think he has the chance to be a better leader or a number 1 option on the team in his prime time if he left Michael Jordan?
No, and that's not what that means by he was the best secondary option, because we saw what happened when he succeeded without Michael. He won 55 games and he got 7 first place most valuable player votes in the 93-94 season while Michael was off playing baseball. But we saw he couldn't carry a team to a championship. And that stands for a lot of guys. A very small percentage, I should say, have had the capability of being the best player on a championship team. I mean, that's reserved for the best of the best. And Scottie wasn't quite in that level. He wasn't, in that elite group that could be counted on to carry a team to a championship as the best player on that team. But what he could do better than anybody was fill the secondary role. He did so for 6 championships, and he maxed out. Unlike other guys that were part of great duos, he never became the primary guy himself, but he maxed out at the secondary role.
So do you feel like after Michael and Scottie, any other duo in the league is similar to those two? Actually, I have my pick. I think current Celtics young duo, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they have the potential to be like no?
No, they're not going to win 6 championships. They're just not. I mean, we have to allow for the fact that, they're still pretty young, so they can mature into all-time great players. But I think I could see them winning a championship. I can't see them winning 6 championships and dominating the league the way Michael and Scottie did. There's been greater duos, but Michael is the greatest player. And to me, Scottie is the greatest wingman, the greatest guy at, the great supporting actor, so to speak.
I mean, in the documentary, there's another very controversial character, Jerry Krause. Most of the people think he's a bad guy. He created tension with MJ, with Scottie, with Bill Jackson. I don't know if you have ever talked with him. How do you feel about him?
Oh, I talked to him all the time when I was on the beat. You had to call him. He was actually very available. He didn't give you much information. He didn't reveal much, but you used to talk to him all the time. You hear it in the documentary. He made things harder for themselves because he just secretive. He was very mistrustful. Kind of questioned everybody that came around him and what their intentions were. I think I wish Jerry wasn't so suspicious of everyone and didn't kind of assume the worst agenda for everyone. I think he would have enjoyed life a little bit more, and I think more accolades would have come his way if he would have just been more open to receiving them rather than worry what somebody's agenda was. Sometimes a hello is just a hello, and there's nothing more to it. I wish he'd been alive for his enshrinement in the Hall of Fame because he deserved that. He certainly was a worthy Hall of Famer. It's kind of weird that Jerry Reinsdorf, the Bulls owner, went in before Jerry Krause did, but it is a shame that he didn't get that recognition while he was alive because he certainly deserved it.
体育日常创作及前线独家内容，请关注纸媒观察员。原创体育精品视频，请关注纸媒出品。